So my name's Amy Waldron. Some of you will know me from previous user sessions. I wasn't around last year. Introducing Beth Logan, who's one of our academic services librarians. And we're just going to give you a bit of an overview of where we're at Sussex currently. And Beth's going to talk in particular about sort of how we're using profiles. So my role is actually Digital Development Manager for the library. So I was responsible for the implementation project of Elements. So during 2019-20, we were really planning and implementing the Elements database side of things. And last time I spoke to you, I don't think we'd quite launched the discovery module yet, but we're working towards it. So in 2020, the discovery module was live by around, I think it was March or April, and that really, obviously in the context of the pandemic, that created some quite interesting challenges. We had a team that were quite new to the whole thing, and I was not around very much. So Beth and her team, and an honourable mention to Emma Phipps, who I know is in the audience today, who have manned the Elements help desk ably throughout that period and really done a tremendous job in liaising both with staff working on Elements within the library, but also obviously our academic community as well. So when the discovery module went live, that replaced our existing profile system for research staff. Currently, we're still dual running. We've still got professional services on the old system, but it is still our aspiration to move forward with that. However, most of 2021, late 2020 and most of 2021 so far has been largely focused, like everyone else, on the ref submission. So really, we're now moving into a phase where we can take stock a bit. The smoke has cleared a little, both from the pandemic and from the ref preparation. So what we're really working towards currently is upgrading both database and discovery to 6.3 during August this year. But we've also got some targeted local enhancements that we want to work on, particularly liaising with cohorts of staff around the university with particular areas of interest that they want to progress and see much richer data from the Elements database being presented on the discovery module. So particularly the education and scholarship pathway, in addition to pure research presentation, is one that's getting a lot of interest at the moment. We don't use the impact module much at the moment, but we've got lots of interest from the centre about how we will use that as part of our preparations for the next ref and as sort of a stage in the institutional impact monitoring exercises. Obviously that doesn't pull through to discovery at the moment, but if that's something that was available in the future, there are certainly areas I think at Sussex that would want to take advantage of that. Lots of interest in knowledge exchange. Again, how do we forefront knowledge exchange activities within the discovery module? We're working with the business school in particular, both on knowledge exchange, but also around accreditation data and reusing data that's already in Elements in order to help them run accreditation exercises so they're not constantly having to recollect data that they already have. We want to bring in more grants, we want to do preprints, and we want to get those professional services staff profiles up and running. So we've got quite an ambitious timetable for 2021-22, but you know, as usual, we're ably supported by Nick and the rest of the team who help us to get to grips with the detail of what we need to know in order to get these different areas up and running and make that experience really smooth for our academics. So obviously, you know, part of what's been going on has been about profile enrichment, building richer profiles. And I think there was a bit of a hiatus, I think, because of the pandemic in the amount of sort of focus we were able to put on that during 2020, certainly. Now that we're moving, hopefully, to have access to 6.3, there are some decisions to make about the enhancements that are available in that. But also Beth and her team have been working closely with lots of groups of staff across the university, particularly post-ref, to hone academic profiles. And Beth's going to talk to you a little bit more about that now. Over to Beth.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try and rest my screen from you if that's okay. Can you see a firefighter? Excellent. Okay. So as Amy said, we rolled out lots of training and advocacy prior to the launch of Elements, but there were a lot of people that we were unable to get to before the pandemic hit, and then everyone moved off campus. And this definitely made our engagement work harder. Librarians know that the best way to tempt people to come to a briefing, particularly a kind of systems briefing, is to provide coffee and cake. So Zoom invites are always less enticing. And of course, COVID meant that there were changes to all of our working practices. And I think for a lot of our academics, this was really seismic because of remote teaching and all of the new kind of digital workflows. And I think for us, timing wise, that was kind of both a blessing and a curse. Some people were so swamped with other work that they didn't engage with Elements at all for a while, which kept our inboxes on the quieter side for a few months. But for some academics, I think the move to everything being online created heightened expectations about what Elements could and should do, which effectively kind of served to stress test the system for us. So we suddenly had people finding their own profiles on Discovery, getting in touch to ask questions and make lots and lots of suggestions, and our inbox really started to kind of fill up. And because of the different levels of training and engagement, we really quickly found that everyone was on a different page, and there were some quite confusing messages flying around. I think one thing that's really interesting to think about is from a user perspective, it's tricky to disambiguate the Discovery module from Elements. And by its very nature, the Discovery module is much more discoverable than pretty much everything else, including all of our lovely training videos and manuals that we kind of buried on our web pages. So it meant that there was some confusion about what Elements was for. Did it replace our repository? Now, that's a question as a librarian I'm super happy to talk about and answer. But did it replace all of our institutional web profiles? And as a librarian, less confident answering that, because it's obviously got involvement from HR and the web team. And I think one of the things that maybe exacerbated some of the confusion was that we had to keep the login portal to our repository accessible. So it meant from a depositing perspective, it was completely possible to bypass Elements entirely, which is obviously not very helpful when trying to engage users. One particular pain point was our medical school. The school is co-hosted by the University of Sussex and the University of Brighton, and traditionally admin staff, so not based in the library, handle all of the depositing of publications on behalf of authors, while an entirely separate web team, also not based in the library, manage all of the profile pages. And so the sudden and kind of apparent aggregating of these two functions was a shock to many people. Medical researchers Googling themselves were finding unfamiliar pages in the top Google result and not really sure what was going on. I should add that this was definitely not helped by me bowling in and telling senior medical researchers that they really ought to just learn how to manage their publications and their profile themselves. So I am still not very popular with the whole of the medical school. I did want to talk about the ref. I think this is a great visual metaphor for how I feel about the ref, but what I actually wanted to talk about was impact. So as part of our ref submission, our impact team asked us to have a look at a number of profiles to ensure that the specific pieces of work that were cited in the case studies were really well showcased on profiles. And the idea here is that the ref panels will probably Google all of those case study authors, and what better way to showcase that work than through the Discovery module. And this was a really great project for us. Up until then, we'd kind of tended to look at profiles either on a macro level, doing kind of big picture data reporting, or on a micro level, dealing with individual requests and concerns via email. So this kind of gave us an opportunity to dig in at that meso level. So looking at about 90 researchers' profiles, color coding them, scoring them, and seeking to kind of flesh out more details around their profile. And this raised loads of interesting issues that I hadn't thought about in advance. So Imagine how you would feel if I just went in without asking you and edited your CV and started putting details like exactly how long you stayed in that entry-level job that you did straight out of uni. Or even worse, I started editing your completely blank CV and then just like dumped in a really lengthy paragraph about that one project that you worked on last year and didn't put anything else in there. So that was really interesting. I think, thankfully, saying this is for the ref kind of excuses a wide number of crimes, but it did raise some interesting issues around permissions. Also, some interesting issues around workflows. So in order to create well-rounded profiles for this project, library staff resorted to scouring LinkedIn and conference brochures and maybe some other unethical stuff to find suitable information for inclusion on profiles. And understandably, there was a little bit of pushback from library staff. It's felt this didn't really fit into what people imagine library work is. So this again prompted some really interesting conversations around where this kind of work should sit within the institution. And now we're in a really nice position of beginning to hone people's profiles. We're doing this in consultation with an academic-based advisory group. A current hot topic is professional activities. We've had a number of suggestions for developments and changes, and it's really useful feedback that shows how much people are starting to engage and really thinking about discoverability. One thing that's really important for us is to work across the institution to make sure any decisions that we do make are going to be fit for all colleagues across all disciplines. We're also looking at embedding more in-system guidance to support users. So prompts and instructions need to be embedded throughout the user process. And we want to make things really clear about what is and what isn't visible on discovery. We are also using the university's commitment to responsible metrics as we are a signatory of DORA. And we're using this as a way to encourage users to engage with their own profile. So Amy mentioned that we're really interested in impact, but I think we're able to kind of frame discovery around impact more broadly than just looking at publications. It's this whole, this is who you are, this is how you represent the university. So that's been a really nice way to kind of talk to researchers about their profile. And thinking about where we're going next, we're looking at embedding training. I want to say mandatory, but obviously I can't officially say mandatory because that freaks everybody out. But for all new staff and doctoral researchers, and this will include professional services when we roll it out more broadly. We're working really closely with colleagues in HR to embed elements in progression workflows and promotion workflows. And we're looking at putting the onus on the individual to use their public profile rather than using the reporting functionality. And the idea is here that it will drive engagement while kind of ticking those HR boxes. So that's a win for everybody. We're also listening closely to what our colleagues need. So looking at how reporting functions and labels can empower school administrators to better understand their staff and to achieve their aims. I think a nice example of this is that for years and years, our doctoral school have had to manually maintain a list of all of their current doctoral researchers. So using custom labels in discovery will mean that they don't have to do that anymore. And lastly, as Amy already mentioned, we're working really closely with our business school to scope some requirements around accreditation processes. And again, I think this is a really nice opportunity to deliver required data, but while also promoting engagement with elements and with discovery.